Shalom, and welcome back to B'nai Noach Academy, Thoughts on Life. Please remember to hit the like button, to subscribe if you haven't done so yet, and most importantly, to share this wisdom and inspiration with friends and family. So one of the most important observances of Passover, at least for the Jewish person, as it's stated in the Torah, is that is an absolute prohibition against consuming, not only consuming, but even owning, being in possession of any whatsoever leavened products. And then, of course, there is an obligation on at least the beginning of Passover, and then later on throughout the entire Passover, it's a virtue to consume matzah. Matzah is those very thin crackers, unleavened bread. Some people like it, some people don't. Question: what is the significance of this? Of course, the Torah does give us a reason that they didn't have time to make leavened bread. That is indeed the case. That is true. However, even prior to that, God already instructed them to eat this unleavened bread. That is on the night prior to their exodus, prior to their leaving Egypt, when they were supposed to eat the Passover offering, they were supposed to eat it accompanied with matzot, with these hard cracker bread. What is this all about? What is the significance? Well, Passover is actually the celebration, the birth of the Jewish people. Not only is it the birth of the Jewish people, but this was the prelude, this was the beginning of the preparation, and thus the countdown for Mount Sinai, for the receiving of the Torah, which impacts not only the Jews, but the entire world, as evident by the fact that you and I are sharing this wisdom together. Thus, God gave us the principles of life on this day of our birthday, on this day of the beginning of the entire process of receiving the Torah and later living a Torah life. And that is, he says, unleavened bread, only matzah. What is the difference between unleavened and leavened bread? Well, it's the same ingredient. Flour, essentially, flour and water comes together. The difference, however, is the unleavened bread is not given time to just sit there and blow up and rise and get full of air, or in this case, somewhat hot air, as the expression goes. Whereas leavened bread, which tastes quite good, is actually just the same thing, but it rises, it lifts up. This is symbolic of arrogance versus humility. This is symbolic of one being full of themselves versus one appreciating their accomplishment, understanding their virtues, celebrating their potential, thus using it, but at the same time remaining humble. And this is what God, and the message that God is giving us for this time when we are about to embark on once again preparing ourselves to receive the Torah, preparing ourselves from a dedication to the Torah, the reenactment, so to speak, at least spiritually, of Mount Sinai. Remember to eradicate humility. Now, on a regular day, as Maimonides tells us, it is important for one to go, so to speak, in the middle path. Not too much, not to any extreme, not too much to the right, not too much to the left. In other words, one, of course, needs to have a sense of self-worth, which perhaps sometimes can be borderline arrogance, can be borderline haughtiness, but it's not arrogance, it's not haughtiness, because then it's forbidden. But at the same time, you cannot totally crush yourself and totally put yourself down. That is very unhealthy. Now, on a normal day of the year, one needs to go in the middle path. You need to be humble. At the same time, you need to keep a good, healthy self-esteem and need to be aware of your qualities, need to be appreciative of your accomplishments, your successes. But there's a time in the year when we need to readjust. There's a time in the year when we need to fix things. And in the words of Maimonides, if somebody finds himself too much to one extreme, then although it's proper to go always in the middle path, but for a short time period, meaning for on a temporary basis, in order to affect a corrective measure, one has to go to the total opposite extreme. Thus, in this time of the year, the Torah tells us, go to the opposite extreme. Absolute humility, absolute unleavened bread. And then, once you go through that process, an entire cycle, which is the 7-8 days of Passover, now you're well adjusted. Now you have, so to speak, that alignment. Now you can get back on the road.